Hello everyone, I'm CJ Werleman. Now let's get into it. As a journalist and activist against Islamophobia for the past dozen years, there's nothing more rewarding than a former Muslim hater telling me that they've converted to Islam partly because of my work. You can even read some of these stories in the comments to previous episodes. But it's not unusual for Islam haters to become Muslims, because the more you're obsessed with hating the religion, the more you end up studying it, and then the more you come to appreciate its beauty, calls for justice, and guidelines for living a morally, ethically, and spiritually fulfilling life. Put simply, understanding Islam remains the ultimate cure for the psychological disorder commonly known as Islamophobia. I mean, you guys know my story well. I hated Islam for a 4-year period after witnessing an Al-Qaeda terrorist attack in Indonesia 17 years ago, but then went in the opposite direction in becoming an activist against Islamophobia after studying the Quran and biographical accounts of the Prophet Muhammad. Well, last week, Australia's most notorious Islamophobe and former leader of a far-right Muslim-hating group shocked his former neo-Nazi colleagues when he announced his unexpected conversion to Islam. He now joins a growing trend of far-right figures converting to Islam to counter what they believe to be what some call wokeness or others call the Western liberal agenda. Look, I'm not going to speak to the sincerity of his conversion. I don't know him, but if he has indeed converted to Islam for the right reasons, then I could not be happier for him, and I wish him well. I'm glad there's at least one more prominent Muslim hater removed from Australia's streets. But I'm a journalist, and I have a responsibility to hold prominent individuals accountable for their behaviour and rhetoric. And as a journalist who holds a university degree in counterterrorism, there's something he recently said that made my ears prick up with alarm. You see, he criticised Christians for shunning violence and turning the other cheek, while praising Muslims for their willingness to use violence against those who criticise their faith.
Because these groups know if they try and push that propaganda in the Muslim-dominant suburbs, they're going to be wiped out in the streets, physically. They'll get their heads kicked in. And this is why Islam will pick up the sword the minute their religion's threatened or their ways, their traditional ways are threatened, they'll pick up the sword. Christians won't.
Now let me be clear. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because obviously he still has much to learn about Islam. And therefore it's likely he misunderstands what Islamic principles such as jihad and Sharia actually mean. But when I hear a new Muslim convert encouraging any kind of violence, my mind immediately becomes filled with suspicion and concern. Because as a counterterrorism academic, I've seen Western law enforcement agencies use this trick against Muslims too many times to count. You see, after 9/11, Western intelligence agencies recruited a network of informants to spy on Muslim communities, with the United States recruiting more than 15,000 informants alone, many of whom are sent to mosques to spy on imams and worshippers, hoping they can catch a Muslim talking about violence, Palestine, Al-Qaeda, or whomever. Now read carefully what an imam at a mosque in California said about a new member of his congregation who had been outed as an FBI informant. He said he just wanted to talk about jihad the whole time, and he refused to believe jihad is concerned only with spiritual struggle and not violence, hoping he would catch the imam on tape promoting terrorism. This technique has been used against almost every mosque in America, Europe, Australia, and the United Kingdom, resulting in the arrest of thousands, if not tens of thousands, of innocent Muslims, many of whom have been arrested as terrorism suspects for merely expressing support for Palestine or opposition to the war on terror, many of whom still remain on no-fly lists today, despite their innocence. But before we go on, we kindly ask you to please support our effort to counter injustices in the Muslim world by supporting my journalism at patreon.com/CJWerleman. You'll be helping me bring these kind of stories to a broader audience. Thank you. Now back to our show. Former FBI agent Craig Montiel not only described how he pretended to be a radical Muslim in order to entrap Muslims in fake terror plots, but also how he would blackmail vulnerable Muslims into spying on friends and family.
In my conversations or in their private conversations, let's say certain things would come up, like if a Muslim man was married and he had a girlfriend, a mistress. The FBI would use that information to blackmail that individual to become an informant.
These now blackmailed and coerced Muslim informants are then encouraged by security agencies to entrap other Muslims by starting conversations about violence or terrorism, hoping the target will say the wrong thing or agree with the premise of the conversation that was started or proposed by the informant. Now watch here as a former FBI informant describes how he entrapped many Muslims using this unlawful method.
There's a difference between telling somebody and making a suggestion. The entrapment is if I go and tell him, yo, come on, let's go rob a bank, and you know that was not his intention, that was my intentions. So I'm entrapping him. I don't make the suggestions. I may go and say, damn, there's a lot of money in there, boy. I see all of my dropping off all that damn money. And he feeds into it, and he go, I sure like to take that.
In 2009, 4 Muslim men from a mosque in New York State were arrested for a fake terror attack on Jewish targets in the Bronx, after an FBI informant who posed as a Muslim businessman offered them $250,000 and overseas vacations to carry out the plot. The chairman of the mosque describes how he infiltrated his congregation.
He came to this mosque, visited a couple of times, mostly during off hours, like in the afternoon time, evening time, sitting on the corner trying to gossip to some of the Muslims and talking to them sometimes about the strange way of talking, like about jihad, why we are not interested in jihad, those kind of things.
Now, none of this suggests that Sherman Burgess has been recruited by Australian security agencies to earn the trust of Muslims in order to spy on their communities. But his words of violence prompt concern and proper due diligence, particularly because Australian intelligence agencies have also used coerced Muslim informants to incite fake terror plots, like Operation Pendennis in 2009, which led to the arrest of 18 Muslim men who were falsely accused of plotting to bomb Jewish and military targets in Melbourne and Sydney. For 2 decades, innocent and vulnerable Muslims have been coerced into inciting terror attacks to make Western counterterrorism agencies look capable and effective. They can't justify their enormous taxpayer-funded budgets without apprehending Muslim suspects. So I urge you to be wary of new converts who openly promote or discuss violence. Give them time to prove their devotion to your religion before you make them a flag bearer for it, because Western intelligence agencies are known to use every dastardly deed to ensnare innocent Muslims. Sherman Burgess may turn out to be a genuine champion for Muslim human rights in Australia, but only time will tell. Anyway, that's my time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we kindly ask you please support this endeavour by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/CJWellerman. We can't produce, sustain and grow this show without your help, and we offer exclusive benefits to those who do. But for now, good morning, good night, wherever you are, and stay blessed.